mentioned. If they started like 2 or 3 hours later, so then they said on Shabbos. So I said, you know what it's going to be? They're going to call it on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Start on Wednesday.
Baruch Hashem. We are Chabad. We're Yekes. We're both Chabad and Yekes. We're consistently late. Okay, so it's a beautiful Parsha. This week's Parsha. Sorry, starting a couple minutes late. To those that are coming on Facebook, Shalom Aleichem. This week's Parsha is Parshat Vaera, and it's a beautiful Sikha. It's a little bit Kabbalistic, the Sikha of the Rebbe, this talk of the Rebbe on the portion. But really the portions that we learn, Lech Lecha, Vaera, Chayesara, this whole book, until the end of the book, the story of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is truly not only a story, but self-understood is something that we can learn from. The Gemara says, the Talmud says, Masei Agiyai, Maisai Lemaisai Avoisai. How is it possible, or when can it be capable that my actions should come to the actions of the patriarchs and the matriarchs? And that's what we call them avos. We call them avos imais. We call them fathers and mothers, even though they're not physically, thousands of years ago. But we call them fathers and mothers because they are the father, not just like America, we call the fathers of the nation. We call them fathers because they gave us something, inherited something to us. Like parents inherit something to their children, so to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, they inherited something to us, to each and every one of us, who are their descendants. So, we all know, in Chassidus, in Kabbalah, that Avram Avinu is chesed, kindness, love. Love is a very important thing in life. It's one of the most important things in life. Love. It's free. It's a wonderful emotion. But it's the hardest thing to accomplish. It's the hardest thing to attain. Seemingly the most important thing in life. Love between people. Love with a couple. It's a very difficult thing. We have 60-70% divorce. Seemingly something that is free, something that God gave each and every one of us. Seemingly it's something extremely difficult. We all, how many books have been written on love? How many psychologists and psychiatrists are Baruch Hashem successful on the topic of love? So we all go and read all these books and books about love. It's a gaitnish, a besarvitnish. It doesn't work for some reason. It's a very difficult midah to accomplish. And that's the truth, that's the beauty of Avram Avinu. Avram is love. The aspect of Ava. Free love. Unconditional love. And that's why Avram is important to us. Because Avram Avinu taught the world the concept of love. And God said, because of that, you're going to be Av Hamoin Goyim. You're going to be a father of nations. But these nations have a difficult getting along with their love. It's one of the most biggest struggles, in the nations of the world, to have love to one another. One of the biggest struggles, one of the most important mitzvahs by Jews is Avos Yisrael, to love one another. And it's Klal Gadol b'Torah. Rabbi Akiva said it's the most important principle of the Torah. So let's try to figure out, the whole Jewish nation began with the attribute of love. And why this is a struggle for us. What is missing in our love that we have seemingly a struggle in the aspect of love, aspect of Avram Avinu. And that's why, even though in our davening we say, Elokei Avram, the God of Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak, the God of Isaac, Elokei Yaakov, the God of Jacob, we end off Baruch Atah Hashem, Magen Avraham, the shield of Abraham. Because everything is about love. Everything is about Avraham Avinu. It's about the aspect of Ava, Chesed. The world was created because of kindness. God continues to give kindness. God wants us to be kind. And the Eibishter wants us to love each other. The Eibishter wants Jews to love each other. The Eibishter wants humanity to love one another. The Eibishter wants we should love everything. The basis is all about Ava. So, let us start this class. It starts on page 34, text number 1. And the Rebbe introduces us to this thing, and this concept, what Avram Avinu, Avram and Yitzchak stand for, and especially what they taught to us. So, if you look at the Torah in this week's Parsha, we find something, usually Avram and Yitzchak, Abraham and Isaac, were polar opposites, seemingly. Avram in Chassidus is chesed, as I mentioned, kindness, ava, and Yitzchak is gevura. Yitzchak is the opposite of Avram. He's gevura, he's severity, he's inner concept. While Avram is more an expression of, and that's why they had different lifestyles. That total different lifestyle. Avram was this guy who opened his house and every all 4 sides, and he gave food. You don't find Yitzchak did that. He was not the party guy. He was not the guy who traveled. Right? Avram traveled, moved his tents around every place. Yitzchak was an inner person. He was a home boy. Couldn't even get his own shidduch, right? He couldn't even go find his own mate. Abraham had to send Eliezer to find him a shidduch. He stayed home. You wanted to learn from Isaac, you had to come to him. Abraham went around the world. He went around wherever he could. He traveled around, so people should learn from him. Isaac stayed in one place. You wanted to make a connection with him, you came to him. You wanted to learn from him. So there were different lifestyles. But we find something that they did together. They both did something together. Anybody know what that is in this room over here?
Abraham and Isaac?
Yeah, something they did. They had a profession that they did together. Dug wells. So they both dug wells. They were into the well digging profession. Right? Abraham started the well digging, his son took over well digging.
No,
that is seeming the common thing they had together. They both dug wells.
that was survival, because they needed water.
Maybe they could have somebody else dug a well. But Abraham dug wells. The Torah tells us in this week's Parsha, Abraham dug wells. Next week's Parsha, Isaac digs wells. So they dig wells. They're in the well digging business.
Oh, okay.
That's what the Torah says. That's what we know. The truth is, that's the only thing we know about Isaac, really. Don't know too much about him. We know that he dug wells. He had a problem with here, there, but with the ace or whatever. But we don't know too much about Abraham. Isaac. We know more about Abraham than about Isaac. So let's go to the pasuk. Okay, quickly. Text number 1. Abraham took his flock and cattle, gave them to Avimelech, and they both formed a covenant. And Abraham placed 7 oil lamps by himself. They made a covenant with one another. And Avimelech said to Abraham, "What are these 7 oil lamps? And why did you place themselves?" He said, "For the 7 oil lamps have taken my hand in order to be able to witness that I dug this well." Right? Abraham was angry that the wells that he dug were covered over by the Philistines of that time. And he was very angry of the wells. They covered all his wells. And he wanted Avimelech to remember that it's his wells. He dug these wells. Right? That's in this week's Parsha. So Abraham dug wells. So the Zohar on this pasuk, to witness that I dug these wells. Abraham wanted that they will always know that he's the one who dug the wells. Right? He made this pact with Avimelech. Okay, so the Zohar says about these wells. Look in text number 2. The Zohar says 3 things exist as witness to serve testimony. We find in the Torah 3 things that became a testimony in history. Number 1, the wells of Isaac. The lot. This is the story of that when the Jewish people divided the land, it was done through a lottery. And the stone that Joshua set up, it says when Joshua took the Jews into Israel, he made these stones. So it tells him to make these stones. He made these stones at the entrance of the crossing of the Jordan, and on it was written all the Torah. Those stones, if you can find those stones that were put up by Joshua, where these stones are, that's written the whole Torah, would be an amazing find. Yes, being precious. But But it's not important, the other two, because I don't want to get lost. So, from where we derive the wells of Isaac? From the verse. In order that to me, for a witness that I dug these wells. So the Zohar says that these... What's the matter?
Oh, I think I have the wrong book.
I brought the one.
So here, I made copies. What's the matter? You have a bunch of copies.
I brought them last.
Okay. I made copies.
Oh, okay.
So, Bavul Til El Eda, so it should be a testimony. This is the wells the wells of Isaac. So it's interesting. We're not even talking about Isaac is a small child at this present time. Why would the Zohar connect the wells of Abraham to the wells of Isaac? What's the connection? Why would we call it the wells of Isaac? In the Zohar, it's Be'eda de Yitzhak. How do we know the wells of Yitzhak from this verse? This verse has nothing to do with Yitzhak. This verse is talking about Abraham. So what is the meaning of the Zohar? What is the meaning of the statement of the Zohar? So in text number 4, the Rebbe's father, of blessed memory, his name is, I believe, Yitzhak, who died in exile in 1944. I believe Yitzhak, his father, wrote commentary on the Zohar. On the Zohar, he was a very big Kabbalist, his father, and he wrote commentary, which is through the self-sacrifice of his wife, Rabbi Yitzhak, Rabbi Simchana Schneerson, the Rebbe's mother. She made sure that his teachings would stay forever, and she made him ink. That's a separate story. So he writes on this Zohar, why does the Zohar attribute the wells to Isaac, when in fact the verse is speaking about Abraham? Everybody asks the question, what's the connection? So he says, after Abraham's passings, the wells in question were stuffed by the Philistines. That was a big problem. Abraham was digging wells. And the Philistines, the Plishtim, were covering up the wells. Well, you're saying it's important for water. They were covering up the wells. Why would people cover up wells that are important for water?
Yeah.
But because that's anti-Semitism. Even to their own detriment, they hated Abraham, so they were covering up the wells.
Why didn't they just take them over?
I don't know. Good question. We'll soon see how Chassidus explains it. So I'll answer the question. It's a good question. No, it's a good question. It makes sense. Why did the Philistines cover up the wells? But that's what they did. They cover up all his wells. And came his son Isaac later on, and he went to the same business. But the Torah tells us in essence that he did not go make new wells. He uncovered his father's wells. Right? He made sure to go back and uncover his father's wells. Maybe he named new wells, but the Torah emphasized that he uncovered his father's wells. Okay. Right? He called them the names that his father called them. So this is an important, what does the Torah want to tell us in that also? So that's also an interesting thing, that he went, and why didn't he just make new wells? No, Yitzhak went to the wells that he knew where his father dug the wells. Maybe he went with his father, as a child, he hung around the digging of the wells. And he knew exactly where his father dug the wells. He went, later on, he redug these wells. So after Abraham's passing, the wells in question were stuffed by the Philistines. And Isaac later redug these wells. Thus the Zohar attributes it to him. So the Zohar says that even though the Abraham's wells, he dug the wells. But since it was stuffed by the Philistines, came his son Isaac and redug the wells. And we're going to name it after him. The above can be seen in the verse. And Isaac again dug the wells of the water, which the dug later on, the Torah tells us actually. That Isaac again dug the wells of the water which is dug in the days of his father Abraham, and he gave them the names of his father. He made sure to name the same names that his father named these wells. And see the discourse and for more of this. So very nice story. Very nice. Abraham dug wells, Philistines covered the wells, and Isaac came later, redug the wells, named it as his father, and we all call it Isaac's wells.
So it's
why can't we call it Abraham's wells? What is the Torah telling us all this? What is the Zohar telling us all this? Why is the Torah telling us all this? What is important to tell us about that they dug wells? What is it? What is it in the service of Hashem to tell me that Abraham? I understand Chesed. Abraham was Chesed. Gevurah. What does it do with wells? What does that have to do with digging wells? So we have to understand, really, to understand this. What is the meaning? What is the real teaching of the Zohar on the pasuk, on the verse of this week, that Abraham dug wells, and the Philistines covered the wells, and came Isaac and redug the wells, and therefore it's called the wells of Isaac. It's not called the wells of Abraham. It's called the wells of Isaac. Even though he called it with his father's name. So why can't we call it the wells of Abraham? Really, what does the Zohar won't say specifically we shouldn't call it the wells of Abraham?
So a child follows the footsteps of his father.
That's the teaching of the Torah. We know that the God says to Abraham, I chose you because you're going to teach your children how to serve God. So we know that Abraham went in the ways of his father. We don't have a question that.
You mean Isaac went in the way?
Isaac went in the way of his father.
Terror.
Right. I'm sorry. Abraham taught his child well and his grandchild well, and they went in his ways. So to explain this, the Alter Rebbe in text number 4 comes and explains the difference between Isaac and Jacob, between Abraham and Isaac. They both dug wells. Why does the Torah want to tell us about digging wells? That Abraham and Isaac, this business that they had together was digging wells. So the Alter Rebbe, explaining the Zohar, says as follows. Text of a beautiful statement, Alter Rebbe, in Torah. Our sages tell us to behave in a manner that makes the name of heaven beloved. What does that mean? And that was really both of their service of Abraham and Isaac was both to serve the Eibishter. They both did the service of God. They both brought about the revelation of God into the world. That was their job. That continues the job of the Jewish nation. You should be a light unto the nations. You should bring godliness to the world. That continues the same job. We continue the job of Abraham and Isaac. It started off thousands of years ago. As Baruch Hashem, we have a Torah. You have to Matan Torah, so we have the tools of the job. So first, they didn't have the tools, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We have the tools. We have mitzvahs, etc. Right? So, but what is the purpose of the tools? Is to bring godliness to the world. Right? This means to make godliness manifest in the world. This then is what inspired Abraham. That's why. So Abraham did his service of God through chesed, through kindness, love. What means love? What means kindness? Kindness comes from when I'm kind to you, so it's coming from me to you. That's kindness. Kindness, when you say God is kind, is something that comes from above. Right? Somebody's kind to you. It's something that you don't have. And that person is giving it to you. Right? Hopefully when I give you love, I give you kindness, I'm doing it without strings attached, which is very, usually not so pashut, right? Not so simple. But that's what it should be, right? It should be unconditional love. We should have unconditional love. We should give unconditional kindness. And that was Abraham. Abraham was unconditional kindness. He showed unbelievable love. Unbelievable love. Whether the person was worth it, whether he was not worth it, whether he agreed or didn't agree, he gave. Right? That's like feeding somebody more than he can eat. Right? I'm not telling you how much to eat.
Or when they don't deserve it.
Or when they don't deserve it, right? I'm not asking you how much you want to eat. I'm giving you whatever. I'm the giver. Right? So it's a flow, true flow of unlimited kindness. Right? He would wine and dine pagans. Right? He had no, there was no
Discrimination.
no discrimination, non-judgmental. This was free food. Everything is food. Free food. But he had an agenda. He's not a Stama person. He had an agenda. He wanted them to pray to God. He didn't want them to thank him. He wanted them to daven. He wanted them to thank God. So it was with an agenda. There was purpose in his kindness. He wanted them to thank the Eibishter, and that's what he wanted. He didn't want them to thank him. He didn't want to have nothing to do with it, because he's not giving it. So there was no strings attached on his part, right? He just wanted them to say, "Thank you, God." That's it. That was the paycheck. Thank God. I'm not gaining anything by you thanking God. God's gaining out of it, so that's his business, right? So he would teach them about God's greatness by instructing them to thank God. That's it. That was his agenda. Not he was trying to get anything out of it. So even thanking God was no gain to him. It was a gain to him because that was his avodah. So his avodah was to bring God to the world. It was his service in the world. So that was his agenda. And that's why Abraham is the attribute of kindness. The Gemara says, the Medrash says, that when Abraham did his service, the attribute of kindness in heaven said, I lost my job. You gotta hear a person that's giving, I never met a person that gives unlimited kindness. That's my job, to be unlimited in kindness. And I have this Avram Avinu, he's taking over my job. I lost my job. Because he's doing the same thing. He's doing it exactly the way kindness should be. And it's not fair. You need to do it a different way. Right? So, God's grace by no one else for their food. This type of influence is known drawing down from above to below. So that's what means something you receive from above. That's it. Kindness. You're receiving it. Hopefully God gives us all a flow of kindness. An unlimited flow of kindness. And that's what Abraham dug wells. What he wanted to give water to everybody. Right? It was not digging wells. He didn't even have wells all these wells for himself. He wanted the world to have everything that they need. So just like he fed everybody, he dug wells. Hopefully a person's going to be in a road who will suddenly see a well and there'll be a plaque there that will say, "Please thank God after you have your drink." And that's it. He didn't ask anybody for money. Didn't ask anybody for a personal thank you. Thank God. That was Abraham.
It probably can also save lives if somebody.
Yeah, I understand.
At that time.
Oh, I understand. No question about it. Sure. But it was about giving. It was about the giving. Abraham was truly about giving. And the purpose of giving was that God giving. That's not his giving. God gave it. I'm just the facilitator. I'm just the messenger. I'm helping God out. But really, it's God has given the well. God's given the food. God's given everything. So you need to thank Him. You don't got to thank me. Isaac was not like that. Isaac was also serving God, but in a different way. So look at Isaac, by contrast, was a well digger. He also dug wells. He's also digging wells, helping people, revealing something. Really, that's the concept of revelation. Digging a well is a concept of revelation. You're revealing something. Abraham dug wells, that's what the Zohar says. Abraham dug wells, he revealed something in the world, and Isaac revealed something in the world. Abraham revealed chesed, kindness of God, and Isaac revealed a different aspect in godliness. And that's why it says Isaac dug deeper wells. He redug his father's wells, but deeper. A little bit deeper. So, presenting a different type of influence by which the very reality that previously concealed godliness is shown to be itself godly. So he wanted to reveal the inner aspect of things. So therefore, you were searching God, I'll teach you how to. I'm not just going to throw godliness out there. You want to find godliness? Come and learn. Right? I'm not running around making, lectures everywhere, whoever listens. No. You want to take it serious? You want to learn? I'll teach you. But it's up to you. You need to dig a little deeper yourself. Okay? So you need to take the time And you might have to pay, maybe you'll pay for the lecture. Right? If you get it for free, you're not gonna, you'll come when you want, you go when you want. No. You want to take it serious? We'll take it serious. I'll give you a test after the lecture. We'll see how much you learned. If you fail, I'll send you packing. I don't want to waste my time over here. You want to get serious? We'll get serious. That is that's the service from below. So Isaac said, I want to learn with serious people. I want to learn with people that want to learn. I'm not just going to go out there and teach. And those who will, some will gain, some will not. Who cares? It's not my I don't care who gains or loses. I'm here to teach. I just know I'm here to learn with people. Serious people. People that want to learn.
You can teach them how to learn.
Yeah, but they want to. They want on their own. They have a desire to learn. I'm not here to sit and just teach. I'm here to seriously teach people. And therefore, you want to learn, you come to me. You'll travel and you come to me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not coming to you. You come to me. And you're gonna learn. And I'll teach you. But you're gonna want to learn. That's Gevura. That is inner, right? Not just what's learned. If you learn yes, you don't learn no. I'll give you fruit. I'll give you
Yeah.
No. This is not a social event. This is a serious learning experience. That's Gevura. That is the aspect of Isaac. Isaac did it in an inner way. And its experience is the digging of the wells. So that's why the Zohar says both dug wells. But Isaac dug deeper wells. He dug deeper wells. Because he wanted people to go a little bit deeper within themselves. It should come from something from below, not something that is given to them. Whatever they do with it, they abuse it. The truth is, that's the truth. You know what happened after Abraham died? All those people disappeared.
Oh.
Right? They disappeared. They disappeared. You don't see anybody who became Jewish or became. They were Abraham. He was the giver. The second he died, they all disappeared.
No.
They all disappeared. It says that. They all disappeared.
Went back to idol worship?
Yeah. Oh, whatever. They went to their own ways. They didn't say, okay, let's, they weren't used to the Isaac approach. They liked the giving approach. Who doesn't want to have free lunch every day? And we'll thank God. So then Isaac is not giving lunch anymore. Lunch is over. The party's over. You want to learn? Let's learn.
Then why Ge'erim, say Bas or Vash, Abraham or Sarah?
Very good question. Go first of all, because ultimately you're going to soon see everything is ultimately Abraham. We're going back to Abraham. Even Isaac realizes that everything comes from above, and there is a concept of chesed, and you cannot go away from that. But also, it's brought down in the Zohar. It says that the Gedim come from Abraham and Sarah, because their souls come lamaila and they come together again in heaven, and they give birth to these souls. So the souls of converts are the souls that were created in heaven by Abraham and Sarah. Wow. That's what it says in the Zohar. What should I tell you? But take it any way you want to take it. So that's what it says. What should I tell you? Yeah.
I was just thinking when you're saying that they disappeared, when
Yeah.
Abraham. So I was just thinking.
I don't think they physically disappeared. They spiritually disappeared.
That's what I'm saying. So I was just thinking of the Rebbe. What an amazing thing to create the shluchim
Right.
all over the world.
Right, because the Rebbe you learn that the Rebbe had, that's ultimate. You have to have both.
Yeah.
You have to have both. You have to have kindness, but you have to have Yitzchak to teach, to want to learn.
Right.
You have to want to learn. If you don't want to learn, then somebody can teach and teach and teach. You're not going to learn anything.
Right.
Okay, let's continue because we're late. Yeah, sure.
So, when we're talking about Isaac digging
Wells.
into the wells,
Right.
it's also like digging into the knowledge.
Yeah. So look what he says. Look at the Alter Rebbe continues. He says it very nicely. The Alter Rebbe himself, a parable for this is a hole bored into apparently dry earth, by digging reveals itself filled with water. Right? You're going to dig deep enough, you're going to find water. Abraham dug. Now Abraham also dug wells. So both of them did the service of revelation, revealing something that seemingly people didn't know what that was there. So Abraham revealed God. But it was well stuffed and not last. That's a problem. The problem is, something that comes from above is wonderful. But if the person doesn't take it, doesn't himself dig, it's going to disappear. And that's why the wells of Abraham ultimately disappeared. They were stuffed up. But Isaac came and he dug deep wells. He redug his father's wells. He dug deep wells. And if none other than Isaac, who dug them anew, he ensured that his father's flow would no longer stop. So he wanted to reveal that everything comes from the above. It's all chesed. But if you want this chesed, if you want this revelation from above to last within you, you need to dig deeper. You need to dig a little bit deeper. And that's what Chassidus explains in essence. You have chesed and gevura in your life. We all have chesed and gevura. We all have kindness and severity in our lives, and we need to be able to, what's called hiskalus, we need to be able to mix the two together. And we need to be able to have unconditional love, but we need to also understand the aspect of respect. That's gevura, respect. So in a relationship, right, you can have a love of your partner. You should have unconditional love of your partner, but you shouldn't be consuming love. That comes only from you. It's a respect. The other person you have to have respect to the other person. You have to give the other person their space too. Love can be consuming and overtaking because it comes from one side. Gevura tells us that the love is done in a respectful way, that the other person is also continues to be who he or she is. So then it's a much more lasting love. A love that comes one-sided, the other person can run away from ultimately. It's just two, because every person wants to feel that they're doing something themselves. Not everything is given to them, right? Right? That's why children struggle with their parents, right? Because they don't want to. They get everything from their parents, but they don't want to. They don't want to acknowledge that, right? Oh, we don't need you, right? We're independent. We don't need you. You don't need me. You couldn't walk without me. You couldn't. You don't need me. What are you talking about? You wouldn't be here without me. But nobody wants to hear that. Right? That's the way it is, even though that's true. And ultimately you'll realize that it's true, that your parents had unconditional love. Most children don't realize that until they have children.
Yeah.
Your grandchildren.
And then they say, "Oh, I sound like you, Mom."
That's it. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. So that's the way it is. That's what it is. So Avram Avinu, brought again to the world love. That's it. He brought to the world the aspect of love. And that's what it says in text number 5. It's brought on in Yeshua and the prophet. It says, "But you, my servant Israel, Jacob, whom I've chosen, the seed of Abraham, who loved me." That's it. Avram was love. I've chosen you and I did not despise you because of Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu taught the world love. Avram Avinu should teach every one of us the aspect of Ava, to have love of another person unconditional, to have love to God unconditionally. Love. That's the foundation of life. Love. Then comes the next verse, text number 6, and Jacob swore by the fear of his father, Isaac. The concept of Ava, the concept of Yira. The aspect of fear. The aspect of awe. So that's why in Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe emphasizes there's the lower level of fear and there's the higher level of fear. The lower level of fear is a fear of retribution. The higher level of fear is respect. That's what I said before. Respect. Awe As Alter Rebbe said it, says in Tanya, shame. The Eibush is not looking for you to fear him. Because then you're a teenager. But the Eibush is looking for you to respect him, to be in awe of him. To be in awe of the Eibush, to be in awe of each other. Right? And that's the beauty of marriage, where the husband always is in awe of his wife, and the wife is always should be in awe of her husband. That's respect. So as long as you have respect of one another, you're going to have greater love. You're going to start to disrespect one another. You're going to lose that love. You're going to lose that love. And so too is our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So too is our relationship with God, is that concept. So that's what happened. The verse says, in text number 7, the verse says in Genesis 26, Chala be'eris is next week's Parsha, and all the wells that his father's servant had dug in the days of Avram, his father was stopped by the Philistines, the Plishtim, who filled them with earth. Who the Plishtim? Who the Plishtim? No, that's Palestine. Philistine, the Philistines.
Isn't that word based on
Philistines, no.
Actually not.
Not at all. Not at all. Different name.
Oh.
Different word. The Philistines.
Okay.
The Plishtim. They actually lived in Gaza, in Gaza.
They were from Greece originally, in the Greek areas of the Mediterranean.
Right. Different people. Different people. Who were the Plishtim in the Torah? Who were the Plishtim? You actually find it in Exodus. It says the Eibishter who didn't want them to take him the shorter way because they were gonna meet if they would take them the shorter way, they would meet the Plishtim. To go through Mitzrayim the shorter way, which is going through Gaza, would have been the shorter way from Egypt.
Right.
Till today. But they would meet the Plishtim. They would meet these Philistines. What was terrible about the Philistines? What was actually the Torah, you have the 7 nations you have to destroy. One of them is not the Philistines.
Oh.
What was so terrible about these Philistines? Seemingly more worse than Amalek,
Really?
Yeah.
They were worse than the Egyptians.
The Philistines had something that was a challenge to the Jewish nation. And the answer is in text number 8a. Siddur says, the Philistines were mockers.
Oh, they were the ones who fight with.
Everything was a joke to them. Mockers.
Bully.
Praiseworthy, and we say this in Psalms, praiseworthy is a person who does not follow the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the ways of the sinners, nor sits in the company of scorners. So the Gemara says in text number 8b, the Shmuel ben Achmeni said, in the name of Rabbi Yonasan, the verse which states, praiseworthy is a person who does not follow the counsel of the wicked, refers to our father Abraham. Abraham did not follow the counsel of the wicked. He was the opposite, even though his father was a... The verse continues, nor sits in the company of the scorners. This means that Abraham did not sit in the company of the Philistines. That was his main problem. Because you can fight a guy who's out to get you, right? Who openly disagrees with you. How do you fight a guy who makes a joke of everything? How do you argue with somebody who's a scorner, who laughs at everything? What is the argument going to be? How is the argument? So therefore, Kabbalah says, the Zohar says, that the only one who could stuff the wells of Abraham with the Philistines. They stuffed all his wells.
Like stuffing the mouth.
Stuffing the mouth of the well. So everything, right? So when a person came and said, I'm learning from Abraham, they said, crazy. Guy's a Meshugana. Right? Stupidity. Why? Just stupid. Go argue with that. That's a person who laughs at everything. Ayavayish, that's the verse, the first In Shulchan Aruch, the beginning of Shulchan Aruch, Code of Jew, the first law is don't be embarrassed those who laugh. Because how do you respond to a person that just laughs at you? If I'm embarrassed by people who laugh, they're not saying anything. They're not arguing with me. They're just laughing at me. It's a very difficult thing because we're shy. We're embarrassed, right? Somebody's laughing at you, looking at you, and saying, "You're saying, what are you doing?" It's a challenge. It's a challenge. It's a challenge to be a challenge. That's what it says. Now, why did the Shulchan Aruch say, "Don't be worried about a person that laughs"? Because if you are, close the book. If you're going to worry about people that laugh, you're not going to learn the law. You can learn all the laws that you want to learn, but if you're worried about somebody that's going to laugh at you, forget it. You'll never learn. You'll never do it, that's for sure. Because there'll always be somebody who will laugh.
Rabbi, the son-in-laws of Lot, they also
Yes.
left it.
Yeah. They left. Correct. That's the Philistines. They're basically scorners. Don't sit with them. Don't sit. That's why David Moshe Leitzim. Don't sit with them. Don't have a conversation with them. There's no conversation with scorners. There's no conversation with people who just tell you, laugh at you.
Yeah.
So therefore, don't waste time. Any scorner will always make you feel bad. Will always put a doubt in your mind. Maybe they're right. They're not saying anything, but maybe they're right. Right? They're laughing at me. They say I'm crazy. So maybe they have something. Maybe they see something I don't see. So therefore, go away from this kind of people. Don't sit with them. It's very, very powerful problem. Jews always were worried about what people are going to say.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
What people are going to think about them. And humanity, we all feel that way, but Jews always had that problem. Ma yoim habrius. That's the expression. Ma yoim habrius. What will somebody say? What will somebody else say? I have to be worried about somebody. I'm not worried, but what somebody else is going to say, I take that into account.
It's interesting how many times this Parsha talks about laughter and Isaac's name.
Right, very good, very good. Separate issue, very good. Because there is a laughter for good. There is a matzachik. You should laugh at the world. You should laugh at the world. So you'll soon see that Rebbe right, so you'll see they're very good. That's a very good... Okay, so the verse continues. No, sit in the company of the scorners. This means Abraham did not sit in the company of the Philistines because they were scorners and engaged in jest and buffoonery. What buffoonery?
What is that?
I don't know. It's English What? Buffoonery.
Oh, buffoonery.
Now that makes sense. Buffoonery.
Yeah, that makes
What's buffoonery? As it stated, with regard to the Philistines in a later period, it came to pass, and their hearts were merry, and they said, "Come, call Samson, and he may make us sport." The Philistines were always a thorn in the Jewish nation, in reality, but in Kabbalah, it's always been a thorn in the Jewish nation in the concept of what they stood for. Yeah.
Please. Who was Avimelech? The reason I'm asking...
Melech Gerar.
Melech Gerar, okay. Was he a Philistine?
No.
Who was he?
Good question.
There was a few of them, right?
I will have to...
The reason I'm asking
Yeah.
is because I somehow had always assumed, because of where we think Gerar is, that he was a Philistine.
He was a Philistine? Okay.
Because it goes completely against...
Right, great. Good question. We'll have to look that up. I don't know. We'll have to look that up.
I heard that there was a few people named Avimelech.
Yeah, could be Avimelech. What does it mean if it's that Avimelech we're talking about? You talk because you have Avimelech later with Yitzchak, also Avimelech. You have Avimelech with Avram. So there's a machlekes because they could have called like the Pharaoh was not one Pharaoh. Everyone was called the Pharaoh in Egypt. So Avimelech, that was the name. Avimelech, father king. So that was the name of the ruler in that area or whatever. But it's a good question anyway. So we'll have to look up who Avimelech is, and I don't know. So the Rebbe explains in text number 9, the Philistines is from the phrase Mavoi Mefulash, an alleyway open at both ends. This is why the sages say the Philistines were scoffers. For scoffing comes from a heart that is an improperly wide open open on all sides. Everything goes through everything, nothing's important.
Right.
In so much as Avram well digging effort represents the holy sense of love, pleasure, and the godly joy in an expansive, abundant manner, it was susceptible. That's why the Philistines could get Avram Avinu. Because Avram was giving. And when you're a giver, everybody takes. Right? When you're the giver, now everybody can take the good and the bad and the ugly. Because you don't care. You're just giving. That's the negative, right? You can give, I'm giving. Meanwhile, people are taking, they could be using my money to do terrible things. But that's not my issue. I'm the giver. You want to go and use it for bad? That's your problem. That's the problem with chesed, pure chesed, because people can abuse. People abuse chesed. You see in society in general, people abuse chesed. You have a beautiful thing, people are going to take abuse of it, right? Anything in the world, right? You have a great program in America, and then you have people abuse the program. That's the way it is. And then everybody gets hurt. Why? Because it's abusive. Because the system almost gives the gives the carrot to abuse it. Sad. So that's a problem. It's susceptible to the Philistines coming along and stuffing it. So that's Chassidus says that Klippa has a unika from that. When Klippa is the negative, receives its vitality from the source of giving. The source of giving gives Klippa, right? I said before, I'm giver. I don't care what you do. Even though, let's say a guy's going to come to you and say, give me money, and I know that he's going to do something bad with it. What do I care? It's not my purpose. I'm not here judging anybody. It's his problem. That's not totally true. You can't walk away from it, but people do that. I mean, people do that. Because it's not my issue. Hear no evil, see no evil, that I am just giving. So the Philistines, Klippa, now since Klippa is scoffers, they don't care. They're actually there to take and use anything that they can use. Because they're just open for anything. They have no morals, they have no ethics, it's all about laughing, it's all about scoffing. It's all about being negative. This is because such holy expansive and openness gives room for perverted iteration. Therefore, so then when you have unlimited, so I know in Chassidus, you have unlimited kindness, then you have the capability of negativity also receiving.
Abusive power.
Abusive power receiving its life force from that positive entity. And that's why even Avram Avinu, in this week's portion, he's saddened with Yishmael. He's saddened. Yishmael he was a terrible guy at that time. He was doing terrible things. But Avram Avinu cannot handle that. He just can't handle it. He can't handle that concept. The expansive and the free-willing attitude of those negative forces that obstruct all holiness. So the Rebbe continues. Not that this is actually the Mittel Rebbe, the second Lubavitch Rebbe, text number 10. And this is so beautiful because this Parsha, all this whole concept of Avram Yitzhak and the whole wells is really spoken a lot in Kabbalah and by the Rabbeim, the Lubavitch leaders, from the Alter Rebbe until the Rebbe. It's really, they go very deep into this concept. And they filled the wells with earth. So the Mittel Rebbe, the second Lubavitch Rebbe, he says, earth is the ultimate representation of coldness, self-centeredness, flat out refusal to budge from one's comfort zone to another. So he says the earth, the Philistines didn't just stuff it with the rocks, they stuffed it with earth. This behavior stems from the debauchery and the scoffing towards anything spiritual, being cold to something that is warm. Mm-hmm. Such a person pushes any inclination to God-fearing from their heart and soul. So that's the earth. The earth shows I'm cold to everything. It's irrelevant to me. It's wonderful stuff. Thank you very much. I have nothing to do. It's not good for somebody else. I'm not interested. This is the meaning of the sage's statement concerning scoffers, that they cannot receive the divine presence. Because such a person cannot hear any closeness to God. This is a scoff, everything is nothing. Neither through feeling of love or fear, and is unable to accept any form of critique. You can't fix him. He's like a funnel. Anything you tell him, it goes right out. The Chafetz Chaim said, the Eibishter created your ears in the same, straight foot. It goes in one ear and goes out right. It's a funnel. It goes right through. Goes right through. So that's a person that anything you're going to tell him, he's already decided, I'm not interested.
His mind is made up.
I already decided I'm not interested. So how are you supposed to work with such a person? The earth inside such a person is so unmoving that they can stand in the face of even the most sublime divine revelation that would inspire the most unfeeling and still remain forever frigid.
Wow.
That means that we all can be Philistines. We all can be Hasidic Philistines. Right? Because we're just frigid. We're just cold to the thing. We're like the earth. We don't budge. Right? And we make sure we don't budge. So how do you stop that? That's where Yitzchak comes in. Yitzchak comes in and says, my friend, you're right. And the only way you're gonna break through this is you're gonna dig a little deeper. And the Gevura is humility. That's in my own service, Gevura is humility. In my own service, to myself. Severity, looking at myself in a Gevura way, is I should become humble. I break myself. I become a little bit humble. To myself. I'm not talking about somebody else. Not somebody else. I mentioned before respect. But over here, a Gevura, and I ask myself, I become a little bit humble. I look a little bit more deeper in myself. I dig a little more deeper. So that's in text number 11. And Isaac dug wells of water which were dug in the days of the father. So Avraham Avinu Isaac didn't come make the new wheel. He didn't invent the wheel of revelation of godliness. His father, that was his father's revelation to the world. Isaac didn't say, I'm going to reveal to you a new concept. No, Isaac said, I'm going to give you the same thing my father gave you. But I'm going to give it to you in a way that you can keep it. I want to give it that it shouldn't go away. I want to give it to you that you should be able to withstand. You will withstand it. You will hold on to it. You will keep it. So Abraham, which the Philistines are stopped after Abraham's death, and he gave them names, and names his father had given to him. So the Rebbe writes, number 12. Now we can understand why Abraham's wells was stuffed by the Philistines. Where Isaac's went ahead and redug them, and they were no longer stuffed. Because the only one who could... Okay, let's see what the Rebbe said. When Abraham approach of love and joy is paired with Isaac's effort of humility and discipline and restraint, now it's no longer possible for any negative forces to feed off of it. That's it. Once you put a little gevura into your chesed, now nobody can challenge you anymore. Because it became yours. That's what gevura does. In this concept, it became yours. Until it became yours, it was somebody else's. It was Abraham's. He gave it to you. So anybody can come and challenge you. When it becomes yours, now nobody can challenge you. Because it's yours.
He defined it.
Correct. He defined it. Correct.
So that
Correct. Now it's something. It's something real. It's something real. It's not just a nice concept. It's not a nice philosophy. Because any philosophy can be challenged, any concept can be challenged, and if it doesn't become, if you don't dig a little deeper and you don't become yours. And that's why Isaac said, no, you want to learn? I'll learn with you. But you have to want to learn. I'll teach you. You're going to come to me. We're going to go a little deeper. We're not just going to do like Abraham. I'm going to give you a philosophy that's going to blow you away. And, wow, hallelujah. We're going to learn that you're going to want to learn, and you're going to want to, not just to be blown away with great knowledge, but want to learn it. That you want to incorporate. You want to incorporate into your being. You want it to become your well, not somebody else's well. Thus the wells lasted forever. That's why Isaac's wells lasted forever.
Nice.
Are they today? We know where they are?
The concept. We're talking about the Hasidic concept. We're not talking about the physical well.
They're Sheba, right?
No, I don't know. That's not.
Beersheba.
Talk about the spiritual concept. So that's going to get done. But Alter Rebbe, we're really late. An undermining force from the other side can only hope to divert holy energy if it's a direct counterpart. Love to God can be hijacked towards a love to foreign to Him. So you have two entities. You have the love of God. There's always a yin and a yang. That's what Eibishter created the world. There's always a positive and a negative. So if you have Ava, you can always have Ava for something else. That's the way it is. So if you have pure love, then you always can love other things too. Because it's about love. So I love God, and I love chocolate cake. Because they're both the same concept. I have a love to it. And I can almost love God like I love chocolate cake. Maybe I love chocolate cake a little more. So, because that's the way it is. This is the meaning of turning the other side. That's why it's considered the other side. Because it's only in such a dynamic, a specific holy expression being opposed by an unholy counterpart, the other side, that the forces of negative can take hold. And that's why you can actually almost imagine yourself that just like you love God, you love something else. Because they're both the concept of love. If, however, the holy energy is in a different nature than the other side, the holy energy also has gevura, has humility, has respect, then there's no counterpart. Then unholiness cannot have a counterpart to this. It's in the same way that people have to understand each other. Right? I love everybody, but I love my wife differently than I love somebody else. Correct? Mm-hmm. And hopefully nobody's sad about that. Right? Because there is rules and regulations. There's gevura, there's respect, there's an inner aspect over here going on in this love than in the other love. But I love everybody. I should love everybody. But that can be dangerous.
Yes.
If there's no respect, if there's no gevura, then I can almost say, oh, I love you too. I see the qualities in you, I see the qualities in her. Right? Why can't we love each other? Why can't we have this one big happy family?
Some people do.
Some guys try that.
So the Rebbe says, let's end this off because, okay, so let's end this off. According to the above explanation, it's understood that the wells that Abraham dug is still very much his. Even after the Philistines stuffed them, and Isaac had to dig them anew, nevertheless, they still mainly consider Abraham's wells. The service of God through love and joy. We're not running away from love and joy. We never want to run away from love and joy. Right? Because you always should serve God with love and joy. In fact, Isaac's contribution, being God-fearing and committed, was precisely in order to protect. Isaac was not there to create new wells. Isaac didn't want to change in the names of the wells. Isaac didn't want to change Abraham. Isaac wanted to protect Abraham. Gevurah is not there to take away Ava. Gevurah is there to protect Ava. To enhance Ava. Jenny, you have to understand that also. Because sometimes it's hard for us to have the mixture of Ava and Yira. It's a very difficult thing. Simon, it's not. Because it's there, they're there for each other.
It structures it.
That's right. It actually enhances it. Because we have this relationship and these boundaries, that makes our love better. Without it, it wouldn't survive. Isaac didn't want to come and say, I'm going to dig a new well, a different well. Those are Abraham's wells. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to dig different wells. No. Isaac said, I'm going to dig the wells that Abraham dug. And not only dig his wells, I'm going to give you names that Abraham gave the wells. Because that's really the service of God, is to love one another. I'm just putting in another concept. I'm just adding to the concept of love some aspect of Gevurah, some concept of respect and humility that's going to make this love last. That's going to enhance this love. That will give existence to the love to last. Because if not, it's not going to last. Thus, the well is attributed to Isaac. Because for Abraham's divine service to endure, one needs to incorporate Isaac. So Abraham understood, and he said, listen, even now in this week's Parsha, call it by my son's name. Because I realize that I need my son. I need my son. Chesed understands that he needs Gevurah. Because if he wants it to endure, he needs Gevurah. He needs the attribute of severity. That's why even this week's portion, the Zohar says, it's called in the name of Isaac. Beautiful. So the Zohar says in text number 14, one should love God very much, because there is no greater way to serve God than to love Him. And anyone who loves God and serves Him with love, God calls him my beloved. And the Zohar continues in text number 14b, and you should love your Lord your God, the verse says. And you shall love. This means that a person must be bond with God through an elevated love. When serving God, it should be formed with love, because there's no service greater than the service of love. So even Yitzhak, again, this is the way Abraham and Yitzhak in Kabbalah go backwards and forwards. Chesed and Gevurah goes backwards and forwards. One is not more important than the other. Both of them are equally important, and both of them need each other. So Yitzhak didn't come and say, you know what? We're going to start a whole new service of God. No. I'm going to continue the service of my father, Chesed. I don't want you to change the service of my father, Chesed. I want you thus to add another aspect to the service. And Yaakov is going to come and add another aspect to Mitzshem in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good.
So let's end. I think this ends off. No, okay. So text number 15, the Alter Rebbe says, God created this world with opposing forces. As such, there's a holy iteration of the Philistines and an unholy. There is a holy concept in the Plishtim, right? Because it's creation by God. Philistines are creation by God. So if they're creation by God, they have to have Kedusha. The holy version of godly joy, that's the Philistines. Unrestricted joy, right? An abundance of expansiveness, that's the Philistines. Everything is good. Every Jew should have that kind of a feeling. Everything is great, right? Be the Teflon guy. Everything is great. Nothing affects you. In Kedusha, right? That's beauty. Nothing affects me. The world doesn't affect me. That's the Philistines in the holy way. The world shouldn't affect you. Laugh at the world if it comes to challenge you. The unholy version is represented by those who mock everything. You can take that and use it for shloi b'kedusha, not for the aspect of holiness, which is another form of permissiveness, letting the mouth and the heart run amok. This is frivolously unholy joy. It's also joy, but that's unholy joy. Frivolous joy serves as a separation and a concealment to the godly light contained within everything. It leads a person to become self-observant and feels as if their existence is self-sufficient. Such an experience is the polar opposite of what holy joy actually feels like. True joy is a celebration of the godly vitality that is contained within and stems from a profound sense of there being no true existence, including their own, but it's one with God. And that's true. That's why the Gemara says in simple terms, Simcha shel mitzvah, the joy of doing a mitzvah. It's the greatest joy that you should have. To attain such a joy, one must preface it with fear of God. That's why you need to have that joy. You need to put respect in there. You need to put humility in there. You didn't put it in the box. Right? Which the beginning of all services as well as the basis and foundation. It's like a person that has joy driving a car. Gives you joy, especially if in Florida. You can put your thing, you can put your roof down. Right? But if you're going to drive wild like a Meshuggah,
Like they do.
and you're going to be reckless, you'll have a lot of joy, but you might have a terrible accident. Your joy needs to be controlled, to truly have joy, and to come back home. And other people should have joy also. So that's why we end with the class. Love is conditional. When the motive goes, so the love goes. A love that's unconditional ever lasts forever. And that's why we need to ultimately come back to Ava. Don't forget that. Don't become too restrictive. Where now people take Gevura in a negative way, right? They're so restrictive. They're so controlling. They're so self-controlling that they don't give themselves a chance also to open themselves with joy and open themselves to give and to receive. We need both digging wells, and that's why the Zohar says that the Torah expressed itself. They both dug wells. They both did the exact same thing. That's the beauty. They both did the exact same thing. Abraham and Jacob and Isaac did the exact same thing in the Torah. They both dug wells. They just dug wells a little different.
That's a great concept, yeah.
So the truth is, that's why I said Abraham dug a very shallow well. Because what was Abraham? Abraham just wanted to give water. He didn't have to go too deep. Isaac said, no, I'm going to dig wells. Because I'm not just interested in giving water. I'm interested that this water will last. And when you go deeper and you hit where the well comes from, now the well, and it goes from its own strength, because the well is coming up from the bottom, that well will last. And that's ultimately what happened. That well lasted forever. So too, if we go a little deeper, if we learn and we just do everything in a superficial manner, then it's superficial. It's easy come, easy go. But if we dig a little deeper, and we learn a little deeper, and we have humility to the subject, and we respect, then it enters our being in a much deeper way, it's everlasting. This learning and this relationship with God. And that's the beautiful sikh of the Rebbe on the Parsha of Abraham and Isaac. I hope we all learn something more deeper about Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak Avinu, who the Gemara says they look like one another. Abraham and Isaac look identical, and they were so identical that Abraham was the first one to pray that people should become old,
Wrinkle cream industry.
get white. Abraham was the first one to pray that people should become old.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be young people should become old. And then he became old. And now they saw the difference between him and his son. But before they couldn't see the difference. The two 30-year-olds walking around. Even though one was 130, another guy was 30. And who's who? And he prayed they should become, and now suddenly Abraham got white. and he was walking with a cane maybe, and Isaac was young. Jacob prayed that people should, before they died, should get sick, so they would know that their time was coming to it. So these are two prayers that Abraham did. But so they were identical in feature, and they were identical in service. And that's why Chassidus, Abraham is Chesed, and Yitzchak is Gevura, which they are two entities in your emotions that should never ever separate from one another. You should always be together, united. And Yaakov is ultimately will learn, I'm sure, in the future. Have a wonderful, beautiful day. Thank you for coming and learning together with us. See you, Mitch.